Hey, everybody. Good morning from Vienna, but good day, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are in the world. Everyone is welcome here. Hey, we got somebody from Melbourne saying hello. Let's see what we got from Zambia. Keep them coming, please. From Bonn, from the Netherlands. What else we got? From Scotland. Lovely. Romania, the USA. Oh, wonderful. I love seeing people from New Zealand. Wow. That's so cool. From Spain. Well, good morning from Vienna. Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 5 of the free JavaScript Bootcamp. And welcome to your first to the first new section of JavaScript that we'll be learning. If you're tuning in for the first time, hi, my name's Ramon. We're doing a free JavaScript Bootcamp, which you can sign up for here at classcentral.com. It is currently underway, but it is self-paced, which means that you can catch up at any time. All the recordings are on YouTube. You can watch and follow along as you like. We'll be getting our certification from FreeCodeCamp for JavaScript data structures and algorithms. And this is a bootcamp. This is collaborative, so you can sign up at group.classcentral.com to ask questions, talk to each other. You'll also find a link to Discord, so please join in the conversation. And we do have a code of conduct, so please follow that. If you have any problems with the bootcamp, that is unrelated to the material of the course itself, please write to us at bootcamp@class-central.com. All right. Well, let's head right in to the next lesson. Now, if you're turning in for the first time, we're going to do some lessons from FreeCodeCamp for about an hour. And then at the top of the hour, we're going to do some Q&A. And I would also like to cover once again, I would also like to cover some of the homework, namely do a little bit of recursion, because at first recursion can seem very different and very weird. And that's totally common. But you'll see, oh, I didn't do the homework. I'm bad. But yeah, the homework was to finish off the rest of the basic JavaScript module, which I haven't done yet. I need to catch up. But today we're going to be starting with ES6, which you might have heard before. And I'm going to summarize my understanding of what ES6 is. So essentially, ES6 is one of the most currently used versions of JavaScript. And yes, JavaScript has versions. As time goes on, committees of people way smarter than me will get together and make decisions, make concessions, make strategies to evolve the JavaScript language. And this is where the term ECMAScript comes in, shortened to ES, which is the sort of like what the standard formal current version of JavaScript is. And ES6 is one of those that was released in 2015, which we'll be studying today. And it makes some additions to the language that might seem either super weird or superfluous at first, and being like, last time I did this bootcamp, folks are like, I don't need to use this, do I? But it's good to know about. It's good to be aware of it. Maybe not to fully understand it, but to be aware of it enough so that you can go and read up more about it after today and understand it better and practice it. So let's jump right in, because one of the things that most of the JavaScript that we've been writing so far is, standard JavaScript, older JavaScript, except for let and const. Let and const were introduced in later versions of ECMAScript, and we're going to be checking it out today, how they relate to scope. So we're going to jump right in. The first lesson. Now, we've already covered let, but we want to also cover a little bit about how var handles scope and how let handles scope. And in order to do that, let's take a look at our code on the right. We've got a function called checkScope that on line 2 defines a variable I, which is a string function scope. And we have an if statement with if true. And if we have true inside an if statement, it means it's always going to run. But let's carry on. If true, I equals block scope, and then we do console log block scope I is, and then we print out the value of I. Then in line 7, outside of the if statement, we do console log function scope I is, and then the value of I, and then we return I. So let's do something. Let's call this function check scope. Remember, when we're calling a function, we always do the brackets. Now, let's have a look at what's printed out. Block scope I is block scope. Function scope I is block scope. So in line 4, when we reassign the value to I, it stayed assigned even though it was assigned outside of the scope of the, even though the assignment took place inside a deeper scope. Let's see what happens with let. So instead of var, I'm going to use let. Same thing. Block scope I is I. Function scope I is I. Let's find out what happens with const. Type error I is read only. So instead of going straight into this, I'm going to actually take a look at the exercise and see what that wants us to do. Fix the code so that I declared in the if statement is a separate variable than I declared in the first line of the function. Be certain not to use the var keyword anywhere in your code. Now, what does this mean? Do you remember a few exercises ago when we used the ability to redeclare a local variable? So check it out. In line 2, we've got const I equals function scope. In line 4, we've also got const I equals block scope. But because it's done inside the scope of an if statement, JavaScript doesn't mind. And in fact, if we look at the output now, block scope I is block scope, function scope I is function scope. The same goes for let. Block scope I is block scope, function scope I is function scope. What about var? Check it out. If we use var in both declarations, it gets stored as block scope. So that's another reason that we prefer to use let instead of var. So our exercise is to use let or const. Be certain not to use the var keyword anywhere in your code. Fabulous. Let's run our tests. Pat. Okay. Come back to this. Play around with it. Mess around. I find this the best way to learn. What do we got next? Mutating an array declared with const. So in line 1 of our code on the right, we've declared a const called s with an array of 5, 7, and 2. Now let's see what our exercise wants us to do. An array is declared as const s equals 5, 7, and 2. Change the array to 2, 5, and 7 using various element assignments. Right, and this is something we've covered several times during the bootcamp so far, where we've said, well, s is a const. Why can we change the values in the array? That's because the array is mutable, it is changeable, but the s, the variable, is not reassignable. So as the comment says in line 5, if we try and do s equals 2, 5, and 7, we'll get an error. S is read-only. But let's do something else. Well, it seems to me that we want to, let's see, pop out the 7 and, pop the 2 and push it at the beginning. No, unshift it into the beginning. Pardon me. So let's do that. Let last member, I think we can use const here, equals s.pop. Let's console log s after that. So when we call s.pop, it removes the final character. Am I confusing myself? No, I'm not. Sorry. It removes the final character from the array. And then our array is mutated. We can see that in the console log. But we want to take that member, which remember, if we go last member, that's a 2. And we want to now place that at the beginning of the array. And we can do that with unshift. So that would be s.unshift last member. See that again? 2, 5, and 7. So what did we do? We popped out the final member of the array, and then we unshifted it, that is, put it at the beginning of the array. So we took that 2 out and put it at the beginning. We're modifying our array, but notice we're not reassigning s. That's how we can keep that const. Let's run our tests. And there we go. Pat, pat. Look at Asanta knowing much better than me. We can pop and unshift. Perfect. Now, the same goes for objects. Objects can be mutated. Let's take a look at our function here on the right. We got a function called freezeObj. We have a const called mathConstants with one property, which is pi set to 3.14. Then we try to change math.constants.pi to 99. We catch, what is this? Let's play around with this in just a minute. We return math.constants.pi, and we have here pi set to freezeObj. Let's console log I. Let's see what that is. So yeah, we are modifying mathConstants.pi to be 99, and then we return mathConstants.pi, which is 99. Okay, fine. I can see that here. We're console logging out 99. But of course, what's going on here? Try, catch. Well, let's play around with it and we'll see. Because what this exercise is trying to teach us is that we can freeze an object. This is something also introduced in ES6. And what it means is that you can tell an object, hey, no more modifying this object. So that's object with a capital O dot freeze. And then we want to freeze any object. Let's freeze math.constants, math_constants. Now what's happening? Let's see. I can see okay, so we try to set mathConstants pi to 99. And in this try, any error that gets thrown out will be caught. You can see here catch exception. And here in console log, we can print out that error. So instead of having it freeze the program, it will console log that error. And here we can see cannot assign to read-only property pi of object. When we return math_constants.pi and we console log it, we can see, okay, it's still 3.14. Let me remove this try and catch for just a second. Okay. Type error, cannot assign to read-only property pi of object. This object, by the way, is the mathConstants object. So what's happening? We are freezing our mathConstants object so that it becomes immutable. Then we can try to mutate that object and it'll throw up an error. That's all we've learned here. The try and catch part lets us be a little fancier and demonstrate that the object has indeed not been modified. And that's why we have 3.14. Let's go ahead and run our test. Oh, hold up. I forgot to read the instructions. In this challenge, you're going to use object.freeze to prevent mathematical constants from changing. You need to freeze the mathConstants object so that no one is able to alter the value of pi, add, or delete properties. We can try to add properties and delete them? Let's try. I'm going to comment out changing math constants.py. Let's try delete math constants.py. Type error cannot delete property pi of object. Cool. Let's try adding a new property. What's another math constants? What's another what's another math constant? Oh my goodness, I can't think of a math constant. There's pi and there's golden ratio. Let's go. I don't know what the golden ratio is. 2.1 something something something. So type error cannot add property golden ratio. Object is not extensible. So what we're really getting at here is that we cannot modify E, E, and G. I don't know these. You're going to have to tell me what they are, please. Gravity. Okay, gravity's pretty good, actually. Yeah, my bad. But yeah, I think this proves our point. So let's restore this to pi at the 99 and run our tests. And there we go. Pat, pat. Oh, yeah. Oh. So, again, FreeCodeCamp, open source, free, but I'm not affiliated with them. I'm just using their content in collaboration with Class Central. And what's going on here? If you can afford it, it would be, of course, wonderful if you can donate a couple of dollars a month. If you can't, don't worry about it. I do it on a separate account. That's why you see it show up for me here. So I'm going to click on Ask Me Later and carry on. Now we're going to learn of a new way to write functions. I'm quite excited. What have we got here? Var magic equals function, return new date. Okay, let's console log that. Console.log magic. Let's call our function with the brackets. And there we can see what the time is. So it's Tuesday, September 13th, 9-ish a.m. Central European Summer Time, which is all well and good. But I want to show you how ES6 lets us write functions in another way. Instead of typing out the entire word function, we can declare a function with an arrow. So we'll use a couple brackets, a couple parentheses, pardon me, then equals bigger than, and this is called an arrow function. So if we take a look at the examples on the left, we have const myfunc equals function and const myfunc equals arrow function. These are equivalent. You will see both in lots of JavaScript code. Now, whether you prefer one or the other, that's totally up to you. I like arrow functions. I think it's nice to just have the little arrow instead of like the whole declaration of function. And it does have a couple of cool quirks. For example, var magic equals. Yeah, we got our arrow here. Return new date. If we declare this function, this arrow function, without the curly brackets, like this line here will be automatically returned. Now, this is, of course, only for one-liners. So this is a very shortened way to write this function. Again, we don't need the curly brackets and we don't need the return, but this only works for one-liner functions. This is equivalent to this. Yeah. So, one-liner. There we go. Yeah. So this here is equivalent to this. We got questions about recursion. We will cover recursion in the Q&A. So please, if we could highlight that question and then, yeah. So var magic equals new date. Let's see what our exercise is. Rewrite the function assigned to the variable magic, which returns a new date to use arrow function syntax. Also, make sure nothing is defined using the keyword var. I can do that. Const. Same thing. I like it. I like that they're telling us like, yeah, stop using var. Let's run our tests. And there we go. Pat, pat. Nice. On to the next one. What have we got? Ooh, writing arrow functions with parameters. So let's see what we got here. We got a const here on the left. Const doubler equals a function with a parameter item that returns that item times 2. Let's try that. Before we do any of the exercises, I want to try this out here. So const doubler equals item function, sorry, a function with a parameter item that returns that item times 2. Now remember, there's no return here. However, we're doing we're doing a one-liner, so it automatically returns that item times 2. Let's give it a try. I'm going to comment out this console log. That way it won't. Console.log doubler. Now it's a function. We can see there. Oh, this is a fun fact. If you just have function doubler without the brackets, we can see here what's being console logged. The function doubler. So we'll call it with, we'll call it with a parameter here of 2. Yeah. So we pass in 2 item and it returns 2 times 2. Let's try it with 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Let's try it with 15. That gives us 30, 56, 112. So this is how we can define a function with a parameter using arrow functions. And of course, the same way we do in regular functions, if we want to have we want to have 2 parameters, then we can do just that. Yeah. So we got item 1 and item 2, item and item 2. And again, have we heard of the term syntactic sugar? This is when this is like little shortcuts we can add for ourselves just to make our code a little bit leaner. What you can do when you have an arrow function with one parameter, this is gonna be a little bit wild, so bear with me, folks. When you've got an arrow function with one parameter, you can omit the parentheses. Leave out the parentheses. So this, still an arrow function, is equivalent to this. Now remember, folks, these videos are recorded. So come back, mess around with this, break stuff. I highly recommend breaking stuff because it'll help really drive that understanding home. But yeah, again, if we have an arrow function with one parameter, we can leave out the brackets. And look at that. That becomes super simplified. Remember, if we were to try to do this with function, we'd be like const double function is equals to function with item return item times. Yeah. So here you can see the difference in terms of syntax. This is pretty short. This is pretty long, but they are equivalent. These are the same. You will see both when developing JavaScript software. So it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with both these ways of declaring functions. Cool. Let's take a look at our exercise. Rewrite the myConcat function, which appends the contents of our array1 to array, which appends the contents of array2 to array1 so that the function uses arrow function syntax. Okay, let's take a look at this function as it is first. Var, I want to change this to const. myConcat equals function that takes 2 parameters, array1 and array2, that returns array1 with a concatenated array2. In our console log on line 5, we're doing myConcat with 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5, which returns and prints out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fabulous. So let's rewrite this using arrow functions. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to rewrite it here. Const myConcat equals. So we've got an arrow function array with array1, R2, which returns R1.concat R2. I always feel like a pirate when I'm doing these R1 and R2. Now I'm getting a syntax error unknown identifier myConcat has already been declared. That's because I left this declaration of myConcat in. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And check it out. It's doing the same now. And now it's a nice, I'm just going to widen the screen a little bit. Now it's a nice little one-liner, which always makes me happy. So let's see. Let's run our tests. There we go. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Ooh. Now, you might have seen, let me go ahead and declare a function real quick. Const greet equals. Have an arrow function with name as a parameter that returns hello plus name. Console log greet I need a name with Gerald. Cool. So if we console log greet Gerald, it prints out hello Gerald. We've done this before. We've got our arrow function. It's got one parameter, so we can leave this out, which is nice. Hello Gerald. But you might have seen before that as I'm typing, if I leave out the parameter, if I forget to add a definition, add a value to the parameter name, check it out. It prints out hello undefined. What we're going to do in this lesson is learn how to do what are called default values, default parameters. So what you can do is with the assignment parameter, the assignment operator, have a default value. So if I call greet without a parameter, JavaScript will be like, okay, well, you didn't pass in a parameter, so I'm going to use the default one, world. Then it'll call hello world. But if I pass one in, with Gerald, for example, then we have hello Gerald. So that's how default parameters work. Let's take a look at our exercise real quick. Modify the function increment by adding default parameters so that it will add 1 to the number if value is not specified. Okay, let's take a look. In line 2, we've got a function called increment that takes 2 parameters, number and value. And it returns number plus value. Let's try calling it. Console.log increment with a number, let's go with 56, and a value which is 59. So it returns number plus value, which is 56 plus 59, which is 115. Now, what this exercise is asking us to do is say, if value doesn't have a number, if value doesn't have isn't assigned, so if value doesn't have a value, then it should, by default, add 1. What we can do is say that value has a default value. Now, let's try calling increment with only 56. So let's see what's happening here. We call increment with 56. 56 gets assigned to number. Value doesn't have a value. So JavaScript will be like, all right, I'll use the default value 1, which gives us 57. So, but you might be wondering, what happens if I don't have that default value? You remember NaN? NaN stands for not a number. And it's what happens when you try to do, if you try to add, for example, 56 plus undefined. So in order to avoid that, we can have that default parameter. So that's that. Let's run our tests. There we go. Pat, pat. Wow, we're really going through this, huh? We're already 21% of the way. Nice. Now, as things start getting even more interesting with ES6, we're going to be using something called the REST parameter. So before we do anything, before we look at this sum function, let's create our own function called greetAll. which is a function that takes, and this is something that I want to use to like greet lots of people. So we'll have a parameter person 1, person 2, person 3, right? So the arrow function that returns hello, whoopsie, hello all, and then person 3 of you, right? So let's console log greet all with 3 people. So we'll go with George, Graham, and Giovanni. Forgot a space here. So we're doing hello, all 3 of you, which is all well and good. But if we want to be able to greet as many people as we want, we can use the spread operator. And that is done with triple dots. ... people. Now we've got this special parameter here that lets us pass a list of people. Now here's what I want to do. I'm going to turn this into a multiple line function that returns that. Let's console log. I want to see what it is. Take a look. When we call greet all with George, Graham, and Giovanni, we get an array. We store all of those parameters into an array called people. George, Graham, and Giovanni. And once we have that, we can do array stuff like, oh, not person, people.length. So if we do that, check it out. Hello, all 3 of you. Let's do it with another one. Let's add in Grayson. We got George, Graham, Giovanni, and Grayson. Hello, all 4 of you, which is nice. So that's how we can use the rest parameter to declare a function with a whole array of parameters, which is nice. So let's delete that here and get to our exercise. Modify the function sum using the rest parameter in such a way that the function sum is able to take any number of arguments, and return their sum. Sounds good? Let's see what we got here. We got a function called const sum with x, y, and z, which first turns this into args with x, y, and z. So that creates an array. And then it returns args.reduce. And then there's a little function here that does with a and b that returns a plus b, and it starts at 0. Folks, I want to ask you a favor. Let's put a pin on reduce for now. If you're curious about what reduce does, you can look it up on MDN. We will cover it later in the bootcamp. But in short, it sums up all of the values of an array. It reduces all of the members of an array using a function on them, which is in this case is a sum. So console log sum. Let's sum up 1, 2, and 3. We'll see that that gives us 6. But we want to modify this so that we can have, for example, only 2, 1 and 2. Right now, it's giving us not a number. Why? Because z is undefined, because we didn't give it a value. So we're going to modify this to, instead of doing this here with args, we're going to use that spread operator here in the definition of the function. So that's ... args. Now I can have as many as I want. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and delete this line. And in fact, I'm going to, because now it's a one-liner. There we go. That's nice. So it takes in a list of arguments called args.reduce, and then it does the addition. And this can be just 1 if we want. I mean, 1 plus nothing is 1. 99, 100, 1000. We got 2,000. What do we got? So 1 plus 99 plus 100 plus 2,000 gives us 2,200. So that's how we do that. Let's go ahead and run our tests and see how it looks. And we passed. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Ooh. Next, we're going to use something called the spread operator, which is a way of doing kind of the reverse. So let's take a look at what we have in our code. We've got R1, which is an array with January, February, March, April, and May. We've got R2. We want R2 to be equals to an array. Change this line, console log R2, which is an empty array, so that gives us nothing. But I want to try something here. What if we have a function, const, I don't know, print months, which takes in a parameter called months. And all it does is console log those months. Oh, whoopsie. There we go. Sorry, folks, I got a little bit confused. Okay, so we've got a function called print months, which takes in a single parameter called months, and all it does is print out those months. Let's try print months with R1. So that's going to print out our array of January, February, March, April, and May. But as you may remember, with console log, like we're printing out an array right now, which is all well and good, but you can do this, right? You can have like January, February, and that'll print them out like this. So how do we get all of those months out of the array and able to be passed as individual parameters? This is where the spread operator comes in. And this is going to look a little bit weird because it's similar to the rest operator. Whoopsie, let me call print months again. So we've got a months array, but here, if we call months with ... out, it's removed all of those months from the array and just passed them in comma separated. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Essentially, it's spreading out the array, meaning it just removes all of the members. But what does that mean? Can we define, for example, a spreaded array, a spreaded variable to have the contents of an array? Remember, this is the contents of an array. Let's give it a try. Let's say const R3 is equals to ... R1. So that does not work. It's a bit weird. But what we can do, and this is what the exercise wants us to do, is extract all of the members of R1 and copy them into R2. But wait, what does that mean? Isn't this the same as this? And in essence, it's not. And I'll demonstrate why. Let's do this one here. So R2 is a copy of R1. Let's R1.push June. Check it out. We have our variable R1, which is 5 months. Then we declare our variable R2. We set the value of R2 to be R1. Then in R1, we push in June. And when we console log R2, we've got January, February, March, April, May, and June. Even though we push it to array 1, it shows up in array 2. This is because this is a reference to R1. We're copying over that reference. They're still the same data structure. However, if we do it this other way, by copying in just the contents of array 1. So we're taking those, we're spreading out those contents and putting them in array 2. Check it out. When I push June to array 1 and then console log array 2, it just keeps those 5 months. Okay? I recommend playing around with this. Again, this is recorded. Ask questions. This is tricky and good to know about. Copy all contents of array 1 into another array, array 2, using the spread operator, which we've done here. Let's run our tests. Pat. All right, let's move on. I love destructuring. Use destructuring assignment to extract values from objects. Cool. So let's take a look at our question. We got an object called high temperatures. It is a constant with 3 properties. 75, yesterday set to 75, today set to 77, and tomorrow set to 80. So only change code below this line. Let's see what we got. We've got a const called today set to high temperatures.today, and we've got a const called tomorrow set to high temperatures.tomorrow. So essentially what we're doing is storing the today and tomorrow key, properties into those 2 variables, which is nice. And if I were to console log them, let's do that. Console log today and tomorrow. We see that we've got 77 for today. Yeah, that tracks. And 80 for tomorrow. Also tracks. But here's the thing. Doing this, while nice, is repetitive. And we actually have a shorter way of doing this using something called object destructuring. I'll show you what it means, because it's pretty cool. Today and tomorrow is equals to high temperatures. I cannot spell. Temperaturas. So what have we done here? Let's expand this a little bit. So we've declared what looks like an object. Santa says, those temperatures are Fahrenheit, I guess. Yeah, same here. Every time I'm like, wait, what? Oh, yeah, Fahrenheit. Yeah, so we are declaring what looks like an object with today and tomorrow, but it's not quite an object. This is called a destructuring. So high temperatures is taking the values of today and tomorrow and storing them in those same variables. How does it know which one to put, you might be asking? That's because I was very careful to name them exactly the same. So the value of the key today will be put into today, and the value of the property tomorrow will be put into the tomorrow variable. What happens if I name them different? Tomorrow's with a Z. Well, sorry, forgot to console log tomorrow Z. Check it out. So it destructured today correctly, but it did not do so with tomorrow's. That's because the ES6 or JavaScript looked in high temperatures, didn't find a property called tomorrow's, so this is now undefined. Can you try it with many that don't exist? Today, tomorrow, next week. Oops, there we go. Next week. Check it out. So if I do it with next week, which again does not exist, it'll show up as undefined. So this is a shortcut that ES6 adds so that we can extract values from objects more quickly, which is nice. Let's see what our assignment is. Replace the 2 assignments with an equivalent destructuring assignment. It should still assign the variables today and tomorrow to the values today and tomorrow from the high temperatures object. And that's something we've already done here, which you can see. Const today and tomorrow set to high temperatures. And today and tomorrow are 77 and 80 respectively. Let's run our tests. There we go. Pat, pat. Let's move on. Use destructuring assignment to assign variables from objects. Because of course, I mentioned in the last exercise, yes, we do depend on the names being the same, right? But what if we want to do it and assign them to different names? If we look at the code on the right here, we've got const high temperatures is an object with yesterday, today, and tomorrow, the same properties as the previous exercise. However, this time around, we want to assign these to high today and high tomorrow. And the thing is, destructuring does still allow us to do this. I'll show you what I mean. Console log high today, high tomorrow. Yeah, 77 and 78. Let me comment these out real quick, which will give us an error. High today is not defined. Const. And we're going to do the same thing, except on the left-hand side, we're going to have, sorry, let me start over. We're going to have key value pairs like before. They look like key value pairs. So the one on the left will be, what is it? Today, high today. And we'll have tomorrow, high tomorrow. Is equals to high temperatures. Let's take a look at what we've got here. Console.log, high today and high tomorrow. I'm going to bring up a comment from Asanta that I really like. A practical example is when displaying user data from a database. You will not want to show user password, so you will need to spread and destructure the password from the rest of the data. This is an excellent example, and thank you very much for bringing it up. So again, const today, that is the value that is inside high temperatures, will be assigned to the variable high today, and the property tomorrow will be assigned to high tomorrow. And that's how we can do destructuring. Again, still in a one-liner. In fact, I just put in some enters just to make it look nicer on a narrow view. But this can indeed be, I'm just going to spread out my window a little bit. There we go. A nice one-liner. So let's remove these commented out parts and take a look at the exercise, because I kind of got excited and I got ahead of myself. Replace the two assignments with an equivalent destructuring assignment. It should still assign the variables high today and high tomorrow, the values of today and tomorrow from the high temperatures object. Let's run our tests. And there we go. Pat, pat. Doing so good, y'all. Oh, I do want to go back to one question from Interpret that and Censor. Let's do both of these. Are key value pairs the same as properties? In an object, a property is made up of a key and a value. In destructuring, they look similar, but it's not a key and a value pair, in my opinion. Interpret says, are we reassigning values to today and tomorrow? No, we're not. We are assigning the values of today and tomorrow to high today and high tomorrow. Sorry, just wanted to make sure those two questions didn't get lost. Okay, let's take a look at our object now. On the right-hand side, we've got a const local forecast. Now things get more interesting. We've got on line 2 the property yesterday with the key yesterday and the value of an object with two values, low set to 61 and high set to 75. Today has low and high of 64 and 77 respectively, and tomorrow has a low of 68 and a high of 80. So what have we got here? We're doing const low today set to local forecast dot today dot low, and we're using high today to be local forecast dot today dot high. And we can use destructuring to do low today and high today. Let's do that. So Let's do const, right? And let's take a look at how it's being done here on the left-hand side. We've got a const user with a John Doe key and an object with age 34 and email John Doe. And we can use destructuring to do John Doe age email with user using nested destructuring. And we can do the same with special variable names. And that's what we're going to be doing in this exercise, with age set to user age and email set to user email equals user. Let's take a look at the exercise real quick. Replace the two assignments with an equivalent destructuring assignment. It should still assign the variables low today and high today, the variables of today.low and today.high from the local underscore forecast object. So let's do that. So we've got const. Now we want to first go into today, and then we want to go into, what is it? Low today and high today is equals to local forecast. If I could spell. I'm going to comment out these two lines so that we don't get an error. So what have we done? We have destructured the local forecast to extract from today the low and high temperatures and assign these to the variables low today and high today. And we're doing this using nested destructuring. Here's one destructuring and here's another. And we can go as many levels down as we want, depending on the complexity of the object. Let's console log low today and high today. That'll give us 64 and 77. 64 and 77. And if we wanted to change this to be yesterday, for example, we would just have to change it here. Yesterday. That gives us 61 and 75. The nice thing about this is that instead of having to go local forecast dot and change this to yesterday and then change this to yesterday, we just need to do it in one place right here. And this is what's really cool about destructuring. It cleans up our code a lot. All right, let's run our tests. And there we go. Pat. Let's keep going. We're doing good. Use destructuring assignment to assign variables from arrays. Yeah, we can destructure arrays just like we do variables, objects, pardon me. Let's take a look at, let's try out this code that we see on the left. We've got a const with A and B set to be equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Take a look at this syntax real quick. We're using an array with A and B inside it to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, this is called destructuring of an array. And what do we think A and B are going to be set to? Let's give it a try. A and B. Oh, sorry. Let me comment out this one here. So A and B are set to be 1 and 2. So it's destructured this array by grabbing the first one, setting it to A, and the second one, assigning it to B. And we can do that for more of them, of course. Let's say we wanted to have C and D. C and D. So let's print these out of order. B, D, A, C. We're printing out B, which is set to 2. Printing out D, which is set to 4. Printing out A, which is set to 1. And C, which is set to 3. Now you might be wondering, what if we don't have enough members to assign? Look, B is set to 2. C is trying to reach outside of this array, so we get undefined. Oh, sorry, D is trying to reach outside of the array, we get undefined. A is set to 1, and C is set to undefined because it tries to reach outside of the array. But the nice thing about this is that we can right away see, I see Carlos getting ahead of me. What about the rest of the items? And it's interesting you say rest. I think we'll have to get into that in the next exercise. Yeah. So we can take those we can take those array members and assign them to multiple variables in one go, which is cool. So let's take a look at our exercise. Oh, actually, we can see it here. All right, Carlos, I see what's going on here. So what Carlos is correctly wondering is what happens if we want to see 3, 4, 5, 6. So what we can do is use commas to skip over other elements. Let's take a look at what that means. Let me console log A, B, and C. Right now, A, B, and C should be set to 1, 2, and 3, which is all well and good. But watch what happens when we add a comma. Now, C is set to 4 because it's skipping over this member of the array. So let's say we wanted to set C to be 6. We would just have to do a little bit of counting. Ding, ding. Now C is 6, the last one. And again, if we add a comma that takes us out of the array, undefined. Now, what's the use of this in a practical matter? That's where the exercise comes in. Use destructuring assignment to swap the values of A and B so that A receives the value stored in B and B receives the value stored in A. Now, before we do it with destructuring, let me show you how I would do it. Let me show you how I would do it without destructuring. So I would go let C equals A. Then I would set A to be equals to B and let B equals C. Like console log A and B. A is now 6 and 8 is now B is now 8. But with destructuring, let's give that a try. A and B is equals to a destructured B and A. What? So what's going on here? We put we put B and A into an array, and then we destructure that array to set those values to A and B. That way, we're swapping their values around without really declaring an extra variable. That's really something powerful about destructuring, and I recommend playing around with this exercise. But with that said, let's run our tests. We're good. Pat. Let's do another one. What do we do? How are we time-wise? Okay, it's 2 to the top of the hour. Let's see what we got here. Use destructuring assignment with the rest parameters to reassign array elements. Ooh. Let's find out what's going on here. So let's see what we got. We got a function, we got a const called source with the numbers 1 through 10. This is an array with the numbers 1 through 10. And we've got a function, and notice it's not an ES6 function. It's not an arrow function. I told you, you're going to see both. And the function is called remove first two, which takes a list as a parameter. And by the name, I'm guessing it will remove the first two members of the array. Const r equals list, and we return r. Okay, let's, on line 8, we're setting the variable r to be remove first two from source. Let's console log r. So r is currently, I can see that source is not being manipulated in here, so it just gives us 1 through 10. But that's not quite what the exercise wants. Use destructuring assignment with the rest parameter to perform an effective array.prototype.slice. Let's find out what that is in MDN later on. So that R is a subarray of the original array source with the first two elements omitted. Okay, let's find out what the rest parameter does in arrays. So let's say we've got, let's play around with source. What we can do with destructuring is have, for example, the first couple of elements of an array. Let's say we want the first three. A, B, and C is equals to source. Console.log A, B, and C. Yeah, that gives us 1, 2, and 3. That we've learned last time. But what we can do with the the rest, is it rest? Rest parameter, pardon me. I mix them up all the time. Is assign the rest of them into its own array. Let's call it the rest. And let's examine what the rest is. It's an array made up of all of source without the first 3. Yeah, so that's cool. We've got const A, B, and C, and then the rest. And that takes all of the rest of source and puts it into a nice little array. But what happens, as I always ask, what happens if we don't have enough? Let's say we've only got 1, 2, and 3. It's empty. What if the array is empty? The rest is empty because it's an empty array. So it'll always give us an array, albeit depending if there's enough, it might have some, it might be empty. So that's how that is how the rest operator works. But how can we use that to remove the first 2 members of an array? Yeah. Let's change this line as the instructions say. So remember, we want to remove the first 2. So I'm just going to call, remember with the commas, we can just ignore them. Actually, let's start with A and B first. And then ... R equals to list. Let's see what we did here. Console log R. Okay. So R is now correctly removing the first, sorry, remove first 2 is successfully removing a, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Remove first 2 is successfully removing the first 2 values of that array, which is good. We're using destructuring to say, okay, assign the first element to assign the first element to A, the second element to B, and then the rest, put them in R, which is the rest of the array without the first 2 elements, which is good. There we see. Yeah. Excellent. So, but of course, you might see here that FreeCodeCamp is saying like, hey, you're not using these variables. Are you sure you want to assign them? So what you can do is use just commas to do the same thing. So you're saying destructure this member of the array, destructure this member of the array, and then just put the rest in R. This is the same thing. Phew, okay. I see a question that has to do with this assignment, so I'm going to bring it up real quick. When you destructure a single value from an array, is that value recorded as an array, just as the rest is an array? No. These first 2 are just individual variables. That's a good question. Let's run our tests. And there we go. Pat. And I think we're at the top of the hour. I went a little bit over as I usually do. So I will now assign some homework. Let's scroll down to ES6. So we've covered quite a bit today. And actually, we are well on schedule because for tomorrow, I wanted to start on create strings using template literals. So your homework is to just do this one. Use destructuring assignment to pass an object as a function's parameters. So that's all the homework. Okay, you've got very, very little homework today. So today's a chill day. Again, homework is to use destructuring assignment to pass an object as a function's parameters. And tomorrow we'll kick off with create strings using template literals. So that's the lesson. Let's jump right into Q&A. We'll do it until past. Why can't we use var? You can use var. Let me be very clear. var can be used. It's just recommended that you instead use let and const because of what we saw, for example, in the compare scopes of var and let keywords exercise and a whole bunch of others. There's also an article which got posted in the chat. Kiki, if you have it on hand, could you post it again, please? Yeah. It's recommended to use. Thank you. Useful blog to know var, let, and const difference. This will help you out with understanding why we want to use let and const over var. It's not that you can't. It's just recommended that you don't. That you opt for let and const. I see that people are happy about not having so much homework. I see here No Sé Programar says, that's great because I need to review all of that. Best homework ever. Good homework because this lesson was a lot to take in. You know what? That's a good homework. Review this. Ask questions. Answer them to one another. I can't answer all of your questions. There are 7,000 of you doing this boot camp. Absolutely collaborate. Teaching is a great method of learning. Teaching and explaining things will help you understand those concepts better. Okay, sorry. Next question. Is it possible to freeze a key value in an object without freezing the entire object? I don't know. Let's go on and search. Did I finish the glass? No, not yet. Getting there. Right. Freeze single property in object JavaScript. In JavaScript, how can we freeze the specific properties of an object? So let's find out. Around the value object in your freezes the object currently referenced in food bar. So object freeze will freeze an entire object. Oh, hold up. Fantastic Fox has one. Kiki, can you get me that link, please? So we can open it up. The one that Fantastic Fox put up. I want to take a look at that. Let's have a look. Object. Yeah, because object freeze will freeze an entire object, which is all well and good. Let me see. MDN. Let's open up MDN and look up this define property. Keyword static. Okay, static. But static is for classes, isn't it? That's getting a little bit ahead of us. Okay, so we can freeze it with static, but again, that's for classes. So it's kind of like it's a way to do it. See what define property does. The static method object define property defines a new property directly on an object or modifies an existing property on an object and returns the object. Writable false object.property. Throws error in strict mode. No, I think you can just freeze objects by the look of it, but this looks helpful. Thank you, Fantastic Fox. Maybe I misunderstood. Let's put a pin on that for now because I want to answer some other questions as well. Oh, hold up. Okay, we'll answer that in a question. I want to see this comment from Flaky. Freeze is just a shortcut for changing property attributes. Thank you very much. Sorry, Kiki, can you grab me that other question, please? Is there a way to unfreeze a freezed object? I mean, we're going to have to find that out by looking it up. Unfreeze frozen object. A lot of the times I don't know. Ability frozen objects in JavaScript. Hey, we got example. Is there how to thaw or defrost a frozen object in JavaScript? Let's have a look. Aha. Technically, object freeze makes an object immutable. Quoting from the MDN page, nothing can be added to or removed from the properties set of a frozen object. Any attempt to do so will fail, either silently or throwing a type error exception. Values cannot be changed for data properties. Accessors work the same. We haven't gotten to accessors yet. Note that values that are objects can still be modified unless they are also frozen. So the only way to do this is to clone the object using, for example, JSON. Cool. There you go. That's a good question. I like that y'all like stretch. I would say play around with it as well. Let's you can use destructuring, by the way, to make a copy of an object. Let's do the next question. Would you please how you approach recursion to create a range of numbers challenge? Okay. Oh yeah, we wanted to do recursion. Let's do it. Yeah, 6. Here we go. Recursion. Using, what was it again? Within a range. So what have we got here? We want to do a random range. Instead of generating a random whole number between 0 and a given number like we did before, we can generate a random whole number that falls within a range of 2 specific numbers. To do this, you will define a minimum number min and a maximum number max. Here's a formula we'll use. Take a moment to read it and try to understand what this code is doing. Let's take a look. So math.random. So inside the brackets, we've got math.random times max minus min plus 1. And that's the math.floor plus min. Oh, that's a lot. Okay, let's mess around with it. Const min. Let's say the minimum number of the range will, let's say that it's 56. And const max equals 62. So we want to get a random number between 56 and 62. Const random equals, copy that in, and let's console log random. 57, 60. I'm just adding spaces to rerun the code. 60, 57, 62, 59, 57. Okay, so that gives us a random number between max minus min plus 1 and min. Okay, create a function called random range that takes a range my min and my max and returns a random value, a random whole number that's greater than or equals to my min and that is less than or equals to my max inclusive. Wait, what was the question again? How you approach recursion to create a range of numbers challenge. Am I looking at the wrong challenge? I'm sorry. Let's look. I'm so sorry. I think I was looking at the wrong challenge. Let's look at them again. See, I should have done my homework. I'm sorry, folks. There it is. Use recursion to create a range of numbers. No, Brett says, I apologize for interrupting, but my last question was on the last challenge in JavaScript. No, you were absolutely right. I only realized afterwards. My bad. So sorry. We provide you another opportunity to create a recursive function to solve a problem. We have defined a function called range of numbers. I see it here with 2 parameters. The function should return an array of integers which begins with a number represented by the start num parameter and ends with a number represented by the end num parameter. Yeah. The starting number will always be less than or equals to the ending number. Your function must use recursion by calling itself and not use loops of any kind. It should also work for cases where start num and end num are the same. So I know I'm going to go off the beaten path here, but I'm first going to do that range of numbers with start num and end num using loops, just so that I can sort of start thinking about how I'm going to do it with recursion. So we'll do a for loop. Let I is equals to start num. I needs to be, what's it? Ends with a number. So it's smaller than or equals to end num. And then we'll do I plus plus. I will have an array here called result, which will be an empty array. I will return that result. And result in the loop, I will call result.push I. console log range of numbers with 56 and 62. So that should give us the numbers 56 through 62. So far, so good. But this is done with a loop, and we want to do this with recursion. Now, the trick with recursion is I like to think of it first with the end condition. So if start num is equals to end num, return start num. Otherwise, we're going to do return. So let's see. We will want to return the number at the beginning, start num, concatenated by, we're going to make some mistakes as we go through this. Concatenated by the result of calling range of numbers with going to the next number, start num plus 1, and end num might be the same. I have no idea if this is going to work. Let's console log it and see. Range of numbers with, let's make an easier one, 2 and 6. So that should give me that should give me the numbers 2 through 6. How did I do that? First, we defined our end condition. If start num is the same as end num, we will return start num. And the way I like to do this is to illustrate to myself how that would look in recursion. First, I will call range of numbers. Let's go with our example, 2 and 6, which returns 2, because 2 is not the same as 6. Concat range of numbers of 3 and 6. Then I'll look at what range of numbers 3 and 6 do, which is return 3 concat, an array with 3 with concat range of numbers 4 and 6. And we'll find out what range of numbers 4 and 6 do is return 4 with concatenating range of numbers 5 and 6. Range of numbers 5 and 6 returns 5 with concatenating range of numbers 6 and 6. But here's where things get interesting. Range of numbers 6 and 6 returns 6. So we can replace this with 6, which in essence, so 5 with concat 6 is 5, 6. Now we know that range of numbers 5, 6 is 5, 6. Concatenating these two arrays together gives us 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 6. Now that we know what this returns, we can replace it up here. This is just a mental model I'm building for myself. 3 concat 4, 5, 6. Dink. Here we go. 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that we know that what this is, we can replace it here. Please, let me do this right. Thank you. 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we do 2 concatenating with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That we already know to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can see it's about building upwards. That's the way I like to think about it. This is where that end condition is explicitly important, because what happens if we don't have it? We get an error. Maximum stall call stack size exceeded. And we can see that console log start num. Check it out. It goes to, then we call range of numbers again. It gives us 3 because we're passing in start num to be start num plus 1, 4, 5, 6. But look what happens now that I remove the end condition. 7, 8, 9, 10. Whoa, look at me scroll down. It's getting bigger and bigger. In fact, it gets so big that eventually the computer gives up. Range error, maximum call stack size exceeded. Now, Michael has a question. Shouldn't range 6, return array with 6 in it? And you're absolutely right, because I'm just returning 6. Let's find out what happens if you console log. Let's have an array 1, 2, 3, concat number 4. Yeah, console log 1, 2, 3, concat 4. This is the other console log. We'll disregard that one. But look at this one on top. If you call concat with just a single value, it will add it to the array. What happens if you do it with an array? It's the same. But yes, this can be an array as well. That's a good question. Thank you, Michael. Hope that helps with that. Let's move on to another question, please. Can you omit the curly braces with just one line of code coming after it? Yeah, this has to do with arrow functions. And yes, you can. We saw that in the examples. I'll show you. Let's give that a try. So let's, const multiply equals to an arrow function, which takes a item. Let's go with doubler. I like doubler. Returns item, return item times 2. Console log doubler with 6 gives us 12. Perfect. So what you're wondering is, can we do it in one line without the return? Yes, we can, with arrow functions. So, yeah, hope that helps. Let's move on to the next question. Can we use a space when we declare function names? No. It's just like variables. Camel case preferred, don't start with a number, and no spaces. Good question. Why should return always be declared within the scope of a function and not outside? Is there any programming logic that backs this? I don't know. I don't know what happens if we return. Let's find out. Let's see. Const a equals hello. What happens if we return a? Okay, check it out. Return outside of function. So no, you can't return outside of a function. Now, is there any programming logics that backs this? Well, this is like the global scope of the program. There's nothing to return. So no returning here. Next question. What is the difference between a deep copy and a shallow copy? I think I did that with the spreading operator. So yeah, let's go back to that. Let's go back to that example because it's really good. Where is that? What am I looking at? Regular expressions. I don't want to look at regular expressions. Yeah, we're not here for regular expressions. Yeah. Okay. Remember what I did here? R ... R1. So we've got R1 is equals to January through May. We've got an array called R2. We set R2 to be ... R1. This is called a deep copy because it copied all of the members of that array. And if we try and manipulate R1 dot push June, it will stay the same. With a shallow copy, if we set R2 to be equals to R1, we remove this line here. Now we've got a shallow copy. That's the difference between the two. Thank you for asking. Let's move on to the next one. Is the rest parameter in any way connected to destructuring an array for some specific inputs? Thank you for the question, Asante. And that was what we did when, I think that was the last exercise we did. Yeah. Yes, exactly. We destructured here. Let me mess around with it. Remember, we've got this const source. We did our, what is it? Const R, no, A, B, R1 is equals to source. The console log R1, that'll give us 3 through 10. We used a mixture of destructuring and the rest operator in order to destructure this array. That's a good question. Thank you. Any other ones? Does the rest parameter consider empty strings and count them? Asante, I love the questions. I love the questions because I have no idea. Let's find out. Hello. Oh, hey, look at that. So in a sense, you can think of an array as a string as an array of characters, right? So check it out. We destructured A and B, so that is the H and E out. And then we stored the rest of the string in R1, which is an array of L, L, and O. Oh, I like the way Flaky puts it. They are basically opposites. Destructure creates individual values from a collection. Rest creates a single collection from individual values. That is magically put. I love it. Thank you. Oh, I'm going to answer a quick question, Kiki, real quick. I know that let and var are different and we should avoid var, but never understood what's the difference between the two. At the risk, I don't want to repeat myself too many times. So Kiki, could you post in the article about the difference between var, let, and const? Thank you. There we go. It's from FreeCodeCamp. It is magnificent. You can also look at the recordings on YouTube. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Is there a difference between the rest parameter and the spread operator? Huh. Well, I mean, like in terms of what they do, it's completely different. For example, let's see. Because when we're using rest, we're using it for assignment. Yeah. The rest is for assignment, whereas the spread operator is for spreading out an array. Let me see. Oh, wait. Yeah. Let's try that out. So let's say we've got const R2 is equals to the spread operator of source. Here we've spread out source into console log R2. Yeah. So this has made a spread copy of source. Whereas on the left-hand side of the assignment operator, the ... represents the rest operator, which represents to get the rest of the array. Hope that answers your question. Is const ABC like declaring variable names like const name equals John? Yeah, exactly. We're declaring, for example, 3 variables in line 10 here. We're declaring A, B, and R1 to be these operators of hello. It's a good question. Add a space, for example, hello world will rest parameter. Oh, will the rest parameter count spaces? Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Hello, space, world. Now you got LLO, comma, and there's a space, and then world. As Carlos puts it, spaces are characters as well inside a string. And I like what Flaky said about rest and spread. Rest and spread are the actual, not just basically, but properly opposites of each other. Same applies as above. Thank you, Flaky. Yeah, do we have any other questions? If not, we can call it a day. Remember, you can ask, let's do that. You can ask questions in the forum, group.classcentral.com. Remember, we have a Discord channel. You'll find the invites in the Class Central dashboard. And remember, all of this is recorded, so you can always follow along at your own pace. And please, if you know the answer to some of the questions from folks, be sure to answer them because it helps you understand stuff better. And before I go, last thing, use destructuring assignment to pass an object as a function's parameters will be the homework. And tomorrow morning for Vienna, we will start with create strings using template literals. I see one comment. No, I think we're out of questions, folks. Well done. Today we covered a lot of new stuff and you all did magnificently. If some of it is going over your head, keep practicing, keep asking questions, and don't stress too much about fully grasping it. Remember, a big part of this bootcamp is to also be exposed to these concepts and being able to familiarize yourself slowly with practice. And, they say that one of the best ways to get comfortable is to get comfortable with getting uncomfortable when you're learning something. It's tough. It takes time, but we're here to collaborate. Remember, answer questions of your peers. That's what we're here to do. I wish you all the most wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow for ES6 Part 2. Remember, we're starting with create strings using template literals. Wish you all the most wonderful day, and see you the next time. Bye now.